big legal win for landowners against logger.
And you're illegal landowners.
Heated exchange in Parliament over Collingwood landowners.
You sent me a message telling me not to go, but I went.
And Madang administration withdraws officials after teacher killing.
This is the National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. This is Thursday's news. Thank you for joining us. A group of customary landowners in Papua New Guinea have regained access to their land following a significant legal victory against supporters of a logging company. 7 people from Pomio in Eastern Britain were barred from entering their land for the last 6 years after restraining orders were issued to them in 2012. The landowners include Paul Pavol Palusalrea and Norbert Pamas, who have been vocal against land grabbing and widespread deforestation in the remote district.
The National Court in Kokopo set aside the restraining orders after finding a lack of evidence. The landowners were represented by lawyers from the Centre of Environmental Law and Community Rights, or CELCO. It took them 6 years to set aside the ban, the situation complicated by the distance between Pomio and Kokopo where the hearings happened.
We have to travel by boat meaning those banana boats. We have to travel by boats all the way from Kokopo to Palmalmal and then talk to our clients and then get information, evidence, organize a retainer with the communities so that at least the retainer gives an instruction for us to head for them. And at times, that's for the start, but after that, we organize for the dependents to travel all the way from Pomio to Kokopo. And it has been very costly.
Pomio district is the site of a controversial special agriculture business lease where large tracts of rainforest have been logged and replaced by oil palm plantations. The dispute over the logging and land grabbing triggered the 6-year-long legal battle between landowners and local companies sponsored by the logging company.
They have been restrained from conducting any business or going near the said SABL area by the local landowner companies. So the court has lifted this restraining order, and our clients are now free to have access to the land, and even they can say or do anything as they are rightfully allowed for by the national constitution of this country.
The court victory is also important for customary landowners in other parts of the country who are battling multinational loggers. CELCO says the ban was nothing more than intimidation of local people. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Forest Minister Douglas Tumoriesa has accused Northern Governor Gary Juffa of spreading lies in mainstream media regarding who the rightful landowners are for Collingwood Bay. The Governor and Minister had sometimes heated exchanges in Parliament today on the legitimacy of landowners. Minister Tumoriesa claimed the group that signed an agreement with PNG Forest Authority is the legitimate group.
I'm not going to steal
Governor
my
Northern.
You are.
Governor Northern, this is Parliament. Please control your...
Northern Governor Gary Juffa was shouting in Parliament after Minister for Forest Douglas Tumoriesa responded to a question by a member for Iji Vitari on the status of Collingwood Bay on portion 135, 136 and 137.
The landowners have worked very closely with the Lands Department since 1998, before my time. The title of the state lease and the customary land to the landowners. Here I have a legitimate land title of landowners dating back to more than 100 years. Here.
After accusing the Northern Governor of spreading lies in mainstream media, the minister claimed the landowners who had entered into an agreement with the foreign company to plant cocoa wanted production to continue.
They got into an agriculture project to plant more than 10,000 cocoa trees. No, you haven't been there. We were down there on Sunday, for your information. You sent me a message telling me not to go, but I went. Your message is here.
Governor Jufa intervened, saying the landowners were not customary landowners of the portion stated.
The minister is misleading Parliament. They did not do their due diligence. No. So you cannot say you did your due diligence. Social mapping was not done. The FCA was granted before the PMFC met and before the social mapping was done. Never done. You don't know who the genuine landowners of Collingwood are, so don't mislead Parliament. You're not stealing ground, no plus from me. You are them. No. None of true. You now for Congo, you plus are still. None of true. Haram, huh?
Forest Minister responded, saying the Collingwood Bay had been neglected and such investment can help the government to deliver vital services.
For 40 years, the people of Collingwood have missed out in terms of development. The good governor was the governor for 5 years. No got one classroom, no got one post, no got one road, lo Collingwood. Now development work lo come inside. True. Suppose government you know work him. Let's partner with our development partners to bring development in remote areas.
Governor Jufa followed with a supplementary question.
That the FCA was illegally operating because the process was not followed. It states here. And the recommendation was that the FCA was to be cancelled and the applicant was to relodge and due process is to be followed. Now, according to our records, due process has not been followed and the application has not been relodged.
The minister said he has nothing to hide and sought leave from the speaker to present the report.
There's nothing that I can hide before you people. It's all here. The document here. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to seek the leave of the chair to table this report to you.
Outside of Parliament, Governor Jufa said the minister's statement is not true and he will take the issue to court.
Our landowners who are taking civil action against the department and against the company and against the forced landowners.
Adelaide Siraks Kari, National, EMTV News.
The identities of the 3 armed men shot dead by police in Lae following an armed robbery on Monday are still unknown. Lae Metropolitan Commander Anthony Wagambi Jr. says police are investigating the incident and the owner of the vehicle used is not yet known. Wagambi said, according to eyewitnesses, 2 suspects escaped. One of them was in possession of a high-powered firearm.
Lae Police Boss Anthony Wagambi Jr. says they have not identified the men who were shot dead. The wounded suspect, however, was found to be from the Sipaya area.
He's been linked up with this gang in that same area when police were fired upon and approached, and consequently the 3 were killed and he was wounded.
On Monday morning, one of the shop owners out here was robbed. Police were alerted when a security guard was shot at, arriving just in time to see the armed men escaping in a grey vehicle. The police chase that started at 9 o'clock in the morning lasted for more than 3 hours. This was the vehicle used in the robbery. It was abandoned at the Busarum compound when police closed in on the suspects. This police vehicle was shot at during the chase. The bullet went through the front windshield and out the rear windshield. A police officer was wounded during the chase.
Other weapons used were factory-made, 2 factory-made shotguns, 1 a pistol grip, which we are still trying to, we are tracing down where the weapon came from with the serial numbers.
3 of the suspects were shot dead and another wounded. One of the suspects in possession of a high-powered firearm escaped. Lae has experienced a general decrease in crime levels since the inception of the Sector Response Unit and the toll-free number. Mr. Wagambi said Monday's robbery put police response to the test.
And the response by all our units was very, very good. All our units in the vicinity responded quickly. And
he warned criminals to refrain from criminal activities, saying police are prepared to respond to alerts.
Suppose you like using gun, firearm, we like shoot long public or police, and police by using necessary force long subduing you, stopping you.
Lucy Kopana, National, EMTV News, Lae.
A policewoman attached with the Family and Sexual Violence Unit in downtown Port Moresby is recovering from several wounds to her face and head after she was brutally attacked by her former partner, who is also a police officer. The accused has been reported on several occasions in the past, but always managed to escape arrest. Josie Kikoli was attacked at the back of her Morata Police Barracks home, and the only thing she now remembers is waking up at a hospital bed from punches to her stomach by the perpetrator who followed her to the hospital.
Josie Kikoli was sitting behind her house on Sunday, 25th of March, when she was attacked from behind by her former partner, a policeman who is attached with Gerehu Police and has recently transferred to the dog unit.
Now, how I'm fighting me, I'm not sorry. I'm just coming and make him silently. I'm coming off him straight. So, the moment me realize him, I stop Gerehu out sick. Time I come na fight him inside la sick now. Me realize him as I stop lo. Out sick one time. Blood lo, skin blow me na face blow me and miss out me fighting me. One object na one something I'm using to fighting me too. I mean not putting him. I mean not sorry.
Josie told EMTV that she had left the accused in June last year after catching him with another woman. However, the accused had refused the idea and had threatened to shoot her. And this is not the first time she had suffered in the hands of her former partner.
No, I want to cross, so when me talk, me just lose him. Me talking him straight. You are a womanizer, violent, aggressive person, and I can't live with you. So me talk him lose him. And me threatening me penis, so I'm looking me low, I'm about fighting me, I'm about killing me low. Just like one bullet, I'm saving. So just like talk him stop, threat him stop. So after all this like threat blame me, I'm calm to make him this like me. So me say me lose him penis, na me no got one plus something lo make you want them na me stop me. I me just come na can fight nothing lo me.
Josie is still recovering from the ordeal and is calling on all the police women's wives who are experiencing continuous domestic violence to speak out against it.
Yeah, before that, 2016 in August, I remember me got reporting. So this like case about GBH. So it's a serious matter. I'm supposed to go to criminal court, but me plan to go through. I'm just gonna die out. I got a sample report, complaint go. Police go paini mem tu, a man doran away police. So this lo got something, got a report them stop and been fight lo me na moms to got us la stop. Now no been arrested me. Going up. Now I make it this lo me, so now me like him must face injustice. Yeah.
She says her job in the Family Sexual Violence Unit involves dealing with women who have suffered from such ordeal, but never for once had she thought she would be a victim.
It feels really bad. It's a slap on my face, you know. Dealing with GBV and encouraging it, trying to reduce this crime, and I am the one victimized. Just for one man. And true, I feel hurt about it. It's not really good.
She has reported the matter to the police and is awaiting her medical report to go with her complaint to arrest the perpetrator. Stacey Yallo, National EMTV News.
And the assault on Josie Kikoli by her former policeman partner has received the attention of NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Pero Drano. He has called on the director of the dog unit to bring in the accused. He said such behavior by policemen will not be tolerated as it has tarnished the reputation of many good works done by policemen and women. He made the call this afternoon when interviewed by MTV, saying they will deal with this matter immediately. Moving on, the Madang Provincial Administration has made a decision to withdraw all public servants serving in the Transgogol and Ampenob LLGs in Madang Province. The decision comes after the brutal killing of a teacher in Bao Primary School on Monday night. The teacher was beheaded by a number of suspects armed with bush knives within the area. This killing has struck fear amongst public servants within the area.
This morning, a meeting was headed by Acting Provincial Administrator John Beavy, Provincial Police Commander, Bao Primary School teachers, members of the Teaching Service Commission and other department reps attended the meeting.
We collectively made a decision and our decision is straightforward for safety of our public servants who are serving within the Transgogol area and the Ampenob area. for their safety and their families, and the property of the state. We have decided that they must withdraw their services from where they are at the moment to Madang, and if it warrants, they can go back to their provinces, because the situation is very tense, and this is not the first time.
Education Director Moses Ariki suspended all primary and elementary schools, including the Transgogol Secondary and Bao Vocational, for an indefinite period starting today. The meeting also demanded the immediate evacuation of more than 200 teachers out of Ambenob and Transgogol area in fear of their safety.
Declare the state of emergency in order to flush out the elements. I can go ahead and move the teachers out during this period of time when the situation is such.
They are calling for a report to be presented to Parliament and for a state of emergency to be declared and a number of police personnel to be stationed at Bao immediately to protect teachers and school facilities. At least 25 police personnel will be deployed to Bao temporarily. Meanwhile, Madang district has assisted police and the education department in the province with 50,000 kina.
Situation is very bad. Madang provincial administration, we don't have funds. So we are drawing for 50,000 from Madang district. I think honorable member has kindly assisted police and the education sector to immediately. This is in a small scale, just to start off. As soon as we get the operation order from police, then we can look at a large scale operation of police. Our situation now in Madang is in a confusion stage. So we really cannot draw funds from the provincial government and the provincial administration because of the confusion.
National EMTV News, Madang.
Meanwhile, officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division, Stephen Yalamu, says killings like this one have been an ongoing problem for several years. Yalamu says police in Madang have been following up similar killings in the area in the past. However, no arrests have been made in any of those killings. He said this is because most of the witnesses police have identified have also been killed, making police work more difficult. Thus, locals are not cooperating with police in identifying and bringing in suspects in fear of their own lives. You're watching National EMTV News. We go for a break now, but when we come back, we'll have news from an interesting day in Parliament and more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. CEO of the APEC Coordination Authority, Christopher Hawkins, has highlighted the importance of goods and service providers obtaining purchase orders before commencing work on APEC-related events. Mr. Hawkins' comments come after concerns were raised against the Eastern Highlands Provincial Government by suppliers seeking payment after the recent APEC regional visits to Goroka. He says it is the responsibility of service providers to ensure they get a signed purchase order before undertaking any work. He also said there are several questionable claims from the Goroka event which will be thoroughly audited, but said there were service providers who followed proper processes and who will be paid for their deliverables. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the decision by the Autonomous Region of Bougainville after the referendum in 2019 will have to be approved by Parliament. He said this after a series of questions were raised in Parliament today on the tabling of the Parliamentary Committee report on the Bougainville referendum and the government's preparation.
Nuku MP Joe Sungi today asked the Prime Minister a series of questions on the government's stand for the referendum in the Autonomous Region of Bougainville.
Bougainville goes for independence. Are we prepared for it? So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us when the committee, bipartisan committee report will be presented in Parliament? Because in the last 5 years, we didn't make it on time.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill responded, saying the Special Parliamentary Committee report will be tabled in Parliament this session.
I'm glad to see that yourself and the chairman of that committee, the Honourable Governor for Southern Islands, back in Parliament, so you are familiar with the issues in that report, and the chairman of that committee will present it in this session of Parliament.
The Prime Minister also said the government will be part of Bougainville's decision on whether they want to be a part of PNG or look to independence.
Not for ABG alone to set that question. The question has got to be set jointly so that we can be able to put it to the people of Bougainville. Second issue is that whatever the outcome, whether they vote for or vote against, whatever the outcome of that referendum has to be endorsed by this parliament. It is the wisdom of our forefathers when they signed that peace agreement, that this parliament has to either endorse it or reject it. And that is a question that will be presented to after the referendum has been concluded.
A supplementary question was then raised by ECPIC Governor Alan Bird on how the O'Neill government has assisted Arab for preparations for the referendum.
There was an agreement between Papua New Guinea and the Bougainvillean government to provide 100 million kina a year in support. I'd like to ask if the Prime Minister can table that, because if you read the response from the government of Bougainville, who are not really represented here except for members of parliament, they are saying that this government, this house, has not fulfilled its obligations under that agreement.
Mr. O'Neill responded saying the 100 million kina committed every year was not a part of the peace agreement, but a part of his government's commitment.
The agreement together to give 100 million kina a year on support for infrastructure and development on Bougainville. Nothing else. And Mr. Speaker, since 2012 we have been fulfilling that. 2012 we've given that money to ABG. And when I did not see the evidence of infrastructure development on Bougainville, I changed it in, I think, 2015. I changed it to making sure that national government intervenes in delivery of infrastructure and services on Bougainville.
The Special Parliamentary Committee report on Bougainville is expected to be tabled in Parliament next Thursday. Adelaide Xerox Kari, National, MTV News.
New information has been brought to Parliament on the yoga saga that has come under the spotlight recently. Member for Madang, Brian Kramer, questioned the registration of a company belonging to the head of the NCDC yoga program, Fazila Basari. Meanwhile, NCD Governor Paul Spako presented a personal statement in Parliament regarding the awarding of this contract.
In day 2 of Parliament, and the contract awarding of the yoga program was yet again queried. But this time, focus was on the IPA registration of the company awarded the contract, Yacht PNG Limited, belonging to yoga instructor and advocate Fazila Basari.
As you all heard, questioned and called me a liar. But unfortunately for the governor, records don't lie. So this is a copy of the bank statement lodged by the owner of the company. It's on records of IPA, and this is why today I questioned the Minister for Trade and Commerce, because IPA comes under his department, to ask him to carry out an inquiry or investigation, inquire into the status of this company and how it obtained its IPA certificate when it was clearly in breach of the terms and conditions.
Minister for Trade, Commerce and Industry, Wera Moore, responded saying he would look into the registration and once done, tabled it in Parliament. In IPA documents collected by a member for Madang, it showed 100,000 kina needed for the foreign company to register a company at IPA was paid by National Capital District Commission. NCDC Governor Powers Pakop, in a personal statement to Parliament, said he had not paid the registration of the company. He also went on to say the program like Walk for Life are part of a bigger world network that uses programs like Walk for Life to address social issues in the city. The governor also said his personal interest was made clear and he was not a part of the awarding of the contract. But Kramer claims the documents from IPA on the registration of Yacht PNG Limited don't lie, and inquiries should be set up into the company's registration and the sole shareholder of the company,
who is known to the governor. And even actually when she filed her CV as part of her application, she named him as a referee. So she named the governor as a referee to obtain her IPA certificate for her company. Then they received funding from NCD. So the governor today in Parliament, as you all heard, questioned and called me a liar. But unfortunately for the governor, records don't lie.
Adelaide Xerox Kari, National, MTV News.
A medical team from Harmony's Hidden Valley Gold Mine will be travelling to Copenhagen, Denmark to attend the Emergency Medical Services 2018 Copenhagen Congress from April the 16th to the 18th. Calling themselves Team Kumul are senior nurses Nancy Abo, Hilda Makis and Silas Kamwang. They will depart Hidden Valley on the 10th of this month. The team will compete against 9 other teams from Europe in emergency services response. The competition will rely on teamwork, skills, experience and the ability to find a solution when challenged. The 3 senior nurses have between them more than 2,500 training sessions since December 2013. The competition will be scenario-based events that test each other's team's ability to manage patients in various circumstances with critical medical conditions and trauma. Harmony Hidden Valley General Manager Gary Davis, on behalf of the company, wished the trio all the best for the upcoming competition. The Managing Director for National Fisheries Authority, John Kasu, today officially opened the National Food Testing and Monitoring Centre in Leh. The centre is an entity set by NFA in partnership with the PNG University of Technology through the Department of Applied Science. The facility is funded by NFA at a cost of 4.6 million kina that consists of a microbiology lab, a chemical analysis lab and an administration block.
The National Fisheries Authority funded this facility, including 2 labs and an administration block for the management of the centre. National Fisheries Authority Managing Director John Kasu, who was also present, said NFA has funded this facility to meet increasing demand for the fisheries sector.
Basically, when you go into, like say for example, the EU market, they have market requirements. You need to meet the minimum standards. And if you don't meet those minimum standards, then your product doesn't enter into EU. And as I mentioned, EU takes up 90% of our seafood products, mostly tuna. So it's important that we ensure we have these facilities here, basically for us to test these fishery products before they go into the market.
A MOU was signed in 2014 between NFA and UNITEP for the establishment of the centre, with an initial funding of 3.6 million kina for 3 years. With an additional fund of 1 million kina this year by NFA, bringing the total to 4.6 million kina, the university managed to renovate 2 labs of the Department of Applied Science. The funds also include the installation of this equipment for testing samples.
Previously, as I mentioned, we had NAC here, laboratory down in Moresby, that we run training there and run tests there. And apart from that, we normally send specimens down to Singapore. But I think with this facility that we are setting up, and once it's accredited to EU, then all these samples that we are sending there would basically be sent here for testing.
The purpose of the centre is to provide critical tests on samples including water, food, and environmental and industrial samples. The centre will carry out research and provide advice on issues identified by fisheries and allied industries. Mr. Kasu also said that the MOU also includes provisions for developing human resource through research and training. Julie Badui Owa, National EMTV News, Leh.
The battle over who is the rightful governor of East New Britain Province isn't over after a court of disputed returns commenced yesterday afternoon in Kokopo. Ousted Governor Celio Dion filed an election petition against his successor, Nakiku Skonga, in October last year, shortly after the declarations. The former governor listed Nakiku Skonga and the Electoral Commission as first and second defendants, claiming there were errors and omissions done during the counting of the regional seat. Edwin Fidelis reports from Kokopo.
The national elections may have been over in most parts of Papua New Guinea, but in Kokopo, the end of the elections has made way for the start of a court battle between 2 veteran politicians, Sir Leo Dion and Nakiku Skonga. Both men completed the race for the East New Britain governor's seat in a relatively close finish, with Nakiku Skonga ousted Sir Leo Dion. But the former governor wasn't happy about the results of the final counting. He filed an election petition last October against his successor. Sir Leo Dion claimed in the election petition that there were errors and omissions during the counting of the provincial ballot boxes, and also the returning officer and his assistants weren't gazetted by the electoral office. Yesterday afternoon, the petition went before Justice Colin McKyle in a pre-hearing trial in Kokopo for the court to verify if Sir Leo Dion's claims against Nakikus Konga were true or not. Justice McKyle has given 2 days for the pre-hearing to allow the lawyers for the two politicians to make submissions before the court. A ruling is expected to be made tomorrow if whether or not the petition will go into a trial or dismissed. Edwin Fidelis, National MTV News, Kokopo.
Here with Thursday's news, training for the country's naval force moved from Manus to Goldie Barracks. That story and more when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. The training of PNG Defence Force personnel who want to join the Navy will now be conducted at the PNGDF Goldie Training Depot outside Port Moresby. Previously, the training used to be conducted at the Lombrum Naval Base in Manus, but due to limited logistics and the expenses involved, the training has been moved to Goldie.
This maritime training is the first set of preparations any member of PNGDF must undergo to qualify for the Navy. There are 21 personnel undergoing this course as the first batch since its transferal from the naval base in Manus. The theory lessons are being supervised by the Royal Australian Navy with 3 senior instructors from the PNGDF Navy.
Okay, this training is basically for us to prepare the initial training to prepare our new intakes into the maritime element. They come in as army pass outs, but they do this training and become mariners.
The PNG Defence Force Navy was formed in the 1980s as a division of the Royal Australian Navy. Today it falls under the PNG Defence Force as the element responsible for maritime civilians in the country. As part of the transferal, a section of an existing facility at Goldie was renovated and converted into a training room for this course.
This is one of the areas that apart from the army, you will see all the facilities here is mostly been land element training, and the Navy was up in Manus, but now it is here, and the air and the Navy training is all been overseas. We get it mainly in Australia, and like other things, we've been importing knowledge, air and naval knowledge. Now we want to grow it here, plant it here, and then those who come after us can take it to the next level. It's the whole idea.
The transferal is part of the PNG Defence Force move to creating the Ship of Excellence, an approach similar to the Company of Excellence for those in the Army. It is in line with the government's plan to increase the number of Defence Force personnel.
We started that program in growing the force with an exercise we call Company of Excellence, which started with the land element. That program was completed last year, and the effort has changed now to grow the maritime.
Tekla Gunga, National MTV News.
The Tanam Adventist Primary School in the Huon Gulf District of Morbe Province officially opened a 4-in-1 double classroom yesterday, funded through fees paid by parents. The building cost almost 180,000 kina and is the first permanent infrastructure built since the establishment of the school in 2010. The classroom will be used by grades 7 and 8.
This is the new 4-in-1 double classroom building, one of the first 2 permanent infrastructures built since the school's establishment in 2010. It was funded through fees paid by parents and to a cost of nearly 180,000 kina, including these desks, chairs and labor. The building will be shared between grades 7 and 8 classes. Tanam Adventist Primary School's head teacher, Rixen Kamban, thanked the parents for their support.
The classroom came about as a result of the parents' commitment. It was the parents that has made it happen, because most of the funds that came from the parents, and we accumulated the fund over the 3 years.
The Adventist school began as an elementary school in 2010 and got its primary status in 2013. It started with a population of 100 students, and infrastructure has always been a challenge for them. The school now has over 700 students. UN Gulf District Primary School Inspector Sam Gesang said the school learning improvement plan has helped develop the school.
Schools will be using the school learning improvement plan for the 3 years period, but at least they can ask parents to take ownership of the school, and at least they come in a big way to help.
The school is one of the schools in Hobart that is also waiting for its outstanding tuition fee-free payments of more than 50,000 kina from the government. They only received their TFF funds in 2015, only in a small amount.
And we are trying our best to get it, but I was running to and fro and asking possible authorities to help, but up to now we did not get it, so we assume that they will not pay us.
Julie Badui Owa, National MTV News, Leh.
Here with National MTV News, Trukai Sports is up next. We'll be back with the details after these messages. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby Union. Capital Rugby Union launched its 2018 season last night at the SP Brew Kettle in Port Moresby. Competition coordinator Paul Joseph said the actual games will commence this weekend at the spiritual home of Rugby Union, the Bava Park.
Members of the CRU board were present to officially announce the launching of the 2018 Capital Rugby Union competition. CRU Vice President John Nilari says the association is confident of hosting a successful season and are currently in talks with potential sponsors.
CRU have commenced negotiations with several sponsors for the CRU competition for 2018. We hope to finalize those negotiations by early next week, and I believe our president will be announcing those set of sponsorships.
Nilkare added that the association are also negotiating the full-time use of the current venue, the Bava Park.
CRU is also negotiating a full-time lease for the Bava Rugby Park, which will allow us to develop our game and implement our junior program. So that's one of those exciting things that we're looking forward to closing that deal.
The technical aspect of the game is important, and investing in training and developing technical people to officiate matches was one of CRU's objectives.
With the support of PNG Rugby Football Union, we've called for nominations to train and certify our technical officials and coaches.
Former Puk Paul Joseph said the competition draws have been released with the season proper to kick off this weekend.
Under the 8 clubs, we have 5 grades. We have the under 19s, under 23, which is also called the B grade side. The women's grade, we have the A grade and the Premier Division. So with the 8 clubs, we have a total of 14 weeks competition commencing this weekend.
Joseph also highlighted the involvement of juniors in the competition as an important inclusion.
Opportunity to exploit our junior divisions, having the schools come around to our park and have their games in the morning. So again, we are in touch with all the schools in NCD through the NCD schools committee.
He also said that the men's division will play the normal 15 rugby, while the women's have the 10-a-side matches.
We're still maintaining 10s rugby for them. Also looking for next season to have it a full on 15s.
Shane Saroya, National MTV Sports.
To some updates on the Commonwealth Games, PNG weightlifter Thelma Toa fell short in her attempt to lift the 70-kilogram barbell in the women's 48 kg category snatch event today. The current Oceania champion in the 48 kg division, Toa swapped the 65 kg lift with ease, but she mounted on the extra 5 kg in an effort to clear off her rivals that caused her 2 attempts to register no lifts.
So Tua comes out to go for 70. It's 2 below her personal best.
for Thelma.
Won't be happy if this doesn't go high.
Oh dear me, shame again. So disappointing.
Stick around for more updates on Trukai Sports after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. One of New Zealand's triathletes in the Gold Coast has admitted copping some abuse for his tactics today as he surprised more seasoned veterans in the men's race. The Kiwis failing to medal, although the youngster showed plenty of potential for the future.
The heavens opening on today's men's triathlon, but Taylor Reid's no stranger to the water and put his swimming skills to good use. Second out of the water and joining the lead pack on the bike.
But the young Kiwi trying to stick with him.
Taylor Reid really having the race of his life.
But that's when things turned nasty as the 21-year-old spent much of his time conserving energy at the back.
On the bike I just sat in. I took a whole lot of abuse for doing that. It's not a way I usually race.
What sort of abuse were you copping?
Trying to almost get ridden off the road once. Verbal abuse, but it's all part of it. Just take it on the chin.
Reid not wanting to name names, and despite the promising start, he'd fade on the 5-kilometre run, where his compatriot Ryan Sissons found his legs to finish best of the Kiwis in 5th place.
Only a few more seconds and it would have been on that podium, but that's where it goes, and I'm still pretty happy.
The much drier women's race was dominated by Bermuda's Flora Duffy, who won the first gold of the Games. But it was a disappointing 13th finish for New Zealand's top medal hope, Andrea Hewitt.
Disappointed because my swim wasn't great. I did the first 200 metres really badly that I just got swum over the top of. So on the bike it was just, I was isolated, so it was tough.
Hewitt turned 36 yesterday and has openly admitted this is likely her last Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, it's cool to have done 3.
Youth again coming to the fore for the women. Nicole Vandekay, the top Kiwi finisher, in 7th, and a sure starter for the mixed team relay on Saturday.
A Polish yacht is limping into Hobart in calm conditions after a historic journey around Antarctica. The crew finished the circumnavigation in 72 days and closed the loop at 62 degrees south.
The Polish yacht Catharsis II is heading into Hobart after circumnavigating Antarctica. It's the first boat to do so under sail south of the 62-degree parallel line, which means the loop has been completed entirely in Antarctic waters. It's taken just over 100 days to complete the 17,000 nautical mile journey, which began in Cape Town. The 9-member crew are all from Poland, and they've endured freezing conditions and fierce weather, encountering 40 to 50 icebergs a day. The 72-foot yacht struck a large wave during a storm last week, which broke the boom. It's been a slow journey into Hobart. The yacht can only use its 4 sails, and it's faced calm conditions and an unfavourable current. But the crew are celebrating the end of an epic journey and the completion of a world first.
Australian surfer Mick Fanning has lost to Brazil's Carlo Ferreira in the final of the Bells Beach Classic. It was the last event before retirement for the 3-time world champion.
Well, it wasn't quite the fairy tale that everyone was hoping for. Mick Fanning in his final professional tour event, falling agonisingly close in the final here at Bells Beach. Fanning breezed through the quarterfinals and the semi-finals earlier on today, and it seemed destined that he would repeat the effort and win a 5th Bells title in the final. But it wasn't to be. Brazil's Italo Ferreira had other things to say about it. Fanning took the lead early in the final, but then Ferreira scored 2 excellent waves to take the lead there. Fanning had a chance late in the final, but alas, the waves deserted him. He was left out the back when the buzzer sounded and fell agonisingly short. So after 3 World Championships, 4 Bells titles, Mick Fanning bows out as one of the greatest surfers that Australia has ever produced.
Man, I'm chuffed. I'm really chuffed. I didn't put any expectations on anything. I just wanted to just enjoy everything for what it was. And it's been a busy time, but no, I've really enjoyed it.
And certainly not to be forgotten amid all the celebrations for Mick Fanning. In the women's final, Australian Stephanie Gilmore has surfed some amazing waves to claim her 4th Bells title.
I can't believe I got the bell. I feel like I've been visualising about it so much and I'm so happy it happened.
The World Surfing Tour, now minus Mick Fanning, now moves to Margaret River in Western Australia.
And that wraps up Drukai Sports for this evening. Stick around for the weather details for tonight and tomorrow after these messages.
Drukai Sports. Drukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Port Moresby, Daru, Kerama, Alotau and Popotneta can expect a shower or two with a top temperature of 32 degrees. To the Himomasa region, a shower or two for Lae, Wau and Madang, mostly fine for Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, a shower or two for Kimbe, mostly fine for the rest of the major centres, that's Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul and Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg can expect brief showers over the next 24 hours with morning fog.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And before we go, a recap of our top stories this evening. Legal victory for landowners in court case against loggers, heated exchange in Parliament over legitimate landowners of Collingwood Bay, and Madang administration recalls all public servants in district following the killing of a teacher. And that's the way it is this Thursday, April the 5th, 2018. On behalf of the entire EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.